There has been a fresh twist in the Kofi Boat saga, and this one makes his situation with the Federal Bureau of Investigation look even darker than before. At this point, the only smart move for him is to take a plea deal, because if he tries to fight this head-on, he might end up spending the rest of his life behind bars. Just a few days ago, Wicked blogger Ghana reported that he had already started considering a deal and that his health had taken a hit in prison. The man who once lived on the finest meals now wakes up to whatever the prison kitchen serves, and that sudden change alone has started breaking him down. Now, the latest information coming from our source in the USA suggests something deeper, heavier, and more dangerous. Fresh evidence has popped up against him, and this one even overshadows the initial $100 million he was accused of scamming. Another $50 million has now been traced to him, and this new twist has the potential to stall the ongoing investigations and drag out his trial for months. The pressure on him is about to triple, and the FBI is not letting go. This extra $50 million is said to have moved through cryptocurrency channels and a cold store business that allegedly served as one of his laundering outlets. He also went through a phase of buying exotic cars, only to sell them off quickly, which investigators now believe was part of the money cleaning scheme. Every step he took is being retraced and examined, and the dots are connecting faster than he expected. To make matters worse, more victims from his business email compromise operations have stepped forward with solid evidence. These aren't small entities. These are respected, established companies, and they want justice. They want their money back, and they are ready to cooperate fully with investigators. With each passing day, Kofi Boat's legal troubles keep piling up. The walls are closing in, and unless he finds a miraculous escape route, the path ahead looks very grim for him. Kofi Boat's story is one of those tales that start quietly in the shadows and explode into national and international attention, leaving everyone stunned at how a young man moved from obscurity to global criminal investigation lists. Before his name became associated with $100 million, before the FBI began tracing his steps, before victims around the world started pointing to him and his crew, he was just a smart guy with access, curiosity, and the kind of digital confidence that pushes someone into trying his hands on anything. His journey into cybercrime wasn't loud at the beginning. It wasn't dramatic. It was gradual, calculated, and shaped by the kind of ambition that refuses to stay small. Those who knew him back then would probably describe him as a boy who always wanted more, someone who didn't just blend into his environment. He watched people around him struggle and decided he wasn't going to live that life. That decision, that hunger, became the seed that later grew into the empire he quietly built in the world of business email compromise. He first learned the basics through associations. A friend introduces a friend, a group teaches another group, and soon everyone involved begins to understand that there is bigger money outside normal hustling. With BEC fraud, the game is simple on the surface but extremely dangerous when perfected. You infiltrate business emails, track corporate invoice conversations, create believable fake invoices, and divert payments into accounts controlled by you and your partners. But behind the scenes, it takes planning, access, tools, and above all, patience. You don't strike immediately. You watch, you study, you wait for the perfect gap. That was what made Kofi Boat stand out. He wasn't the type to act impulsively. He learned to read systems, understand financial movements, and identify the weaknesses in corporate communication structures. When he began making real money, he didn't make noise yet. That stage was the building stage. He pumped money into crypto wallets, spread funds into cold store businesses, and pushed some into trusted accounts. Crypto became his best friend. The decentralized nature of digital currency made it easy for him to clean the money and move it across borders without raising flags. Cold stores became the perfect cover for bulk cash deposits. In the books, it looked like meat, fish, poultry, and frozen goods were being delivered and sold. But in reality, most of the money entering those accounts wasn't from any physical goods. They were proceeds of the cyber deals he and his team executed across different countries. Once the money stabilized and became consistent, the lifestyle changed. That was when the world started noticing him. Because no matter how much someone tries to stay quiet, big money speaks loudly. He started buying exotic cars, one after the other. Bentleys, G-Wagons, Range Rovers, all customized and often bought in cash. He lived like someone who believed his money would never finish. He took flashy trips, stayed in high-end apartments, threw private parties, and became that type of guy people described as young but rich. Those close to him saw his rise as inspiration. Those at a distance saw him as another lucky man. But the people who mattered most, international investigators, saw him as a walking clue. While he was flaunting his wealth, the FBI wasn't sleeping. Every dollar that entered the United States banking system from his activities was flagged somewhere. Complaints came in from affected companies, top corporations, that had lost huge sums through email diversion schemes. None of these companies were small. They were major players with compliance systems, legal teams, and strong auditing processes. When they discovered discrepancies in their payments, the investigations began. Those investigations led to money trails, and those money trails led to the networks Kofi Boat operated within. Quietly, a dossier started building against him. Every luxury car he posted online became part of the profile. Every flashy hotel he checked into became another timestamp. Every extravagant display became another data point to analyze. His online persona did him no favors. What he thought was simple entertainment, posting expensive items, showing off branded outfits, flaunting his lifestyle, became proof of unexplained wealth. Investigators discovered patterns. The spike in his lifestyle matched timelines of corporate losses. Money moved from compromised accounts into crypto, from crypto into shell accounts, from shells into businesses, and then into cars or properties. It became a chain too neat to ignore. When the day of his arrest came, it wasn't dramatic on his side, but behind the scenes, it was a coordinated move. Local authorities collaborated with international agencies, and when they finally picked him up, his team was shocked. They never expected it to hit that level. His internal circle believed that cybercrime investigations moved slowly, and that staying out of the US was enough protection. But extradition treaties don't joke. When the crime involves huge sums and international victims, the US doesn't hesitate to pull people across borders. And that's exactly what happened. He was extradited. And once he landed in America, the atmosphere changed completely. Prison life hit him harder than expected. The man who once ate what he wanted began eating whatever the prison kitchen served. The man who once commanded his own schedule started living by strict routines. Sources say the shock affected him physically and emotionally. He wasn't used to confinement, and the rapid transition from extreme freedom to restriction took a toll. His health reportedly began fluctuating, with stress and anxiety playing a major role. Those who spoke with him described a man who regretted everything but could no longer reverse the clock. While the initial accusation revolved around $100 million, investigators kept digging, and that's where the biggest shock hit him. New evidence emerged linking him to an extra $50 million. This wasn't money casually floating around. Investigators traced it through crypto transfers, cold store accounts, and expensive car flips. That $50 million opened a new chapter in his case, making the prosecution even stronger. What was already a mountain became a whole mountain range. With that new discovery, hopes of a quick resolution died instantly. To make matters worse, more victims came forward. Companies that had been monitoring their losses for months finally discovered that their funds had passed through networks attached to him and his associates. They came prepared with documentation, communication logs, transaction records, and expert forensic reports. These companies weren't begging. They wanted justice. They wanted restitution. They wanted accountability. Their involvement gives the case more weight than he ever imagined. The situation turned from bad to impossible. His lawyers looked at the pile of evidence, the statements from victims, the money trail, the digital footprints, the crypto logs, the bank activity, and the new $50 million twist. It became clear he couldn't fight this in court. The prosecution had everything they needed. The only reasonable path left was a plea deal. Without a plea deal, he will be looking at decades in federal prison, possibly more than the length of his current lifespan. US courts don't joke with financial crimes at that scale, especially when they affect major corporations across multiple states. So now, his life has shrunk into one hope: negotiate. The only card left is for him to cooperate fully, provide information about the network, return whatever funds he can, and hope the judge shows mercy. Cooperation could shave several years off his sentence. It won't set him free, but it may prevent him from growing old behind bars. His legal team is pushing negotiations quietly, trying to salvage whatever they can from the rubble of his case. But even with the plea deal option on the table, things are not easy. Prosecutors want everything: access to his wallets, names of his partners, full breakdown of how he laundered money, and every detail of his operations. The more he talks, the better his chances. The more he hides, the deeper his troubles. He's in that stage where survival depends on honesty, something he avoided in his cybercrime years. Life has cornered him completely. The man who once controlled millions now controls nothing. At this point, the world that once admired his wealth has moved on. The people who once praised his lifestyle are silent. The friends who partied with him are nowhere to be found. The only voices left are lawyers, investigators, and judges. His journey from digital mastermind to federal prisoner is a harsh reminder that the internet never forgets, victims never stay quiet forever, and the law eventually catches up. Right now, as he sits in prison dealing with the reality of confinement, the luxury life he lived feels like a distant dream. The man who believed he had beaten the system now depends on the same system to show him mercy. And that is the biggest twist of his story. After all the money, after all the flaunting, after all the confidence, his only hope for survival is the very law he once danced around. His fate is no longer in his hands. It's in the hands of prosecutors, judges, and the strength of his corporation. The rise was loud, the fall was louder, and the ending, whatever it becomes, will be a lesson for anyone who thinks the cybercrime world is a safe shortcut to wealth.